What's up, guys? Mike from Lighthouse Solutions again. So today we're going to talk about just real basic stuff. Going to go over loading, unloading, how to treat a weapon correctly the whole time. This is more for just basic shooters, new to the game. Just some basic safety stuff that you want to know and understand how to operate the weapon correctly. And we're going to go through the procedures. We're also going to talk about different things on how to hold the gun correctly to see if it fits your hand well, give you a good grip when you're shooting. Just some basic fundamentals for you guys to focus on. So that's what we're going to move into first. Alright guys, so first thing we're going to talk real quick is your 3 cardinal rules for firearm safety. Alright, so first things first, we treat every gun like it's loaded. Okay, doesn't matter if you've cleared it, doesn't matter what you've done to the gun already, you treat every gun like it's loaded. What you're going to do when you do this is you're going to build a discipline for yourself that every time you handle the gun, it's handled the same way. I don't handle it like it's a toy because I've cleared it. I treat it like it's a loaded gun, and again, it's going to help me with that discipline of how to handle a firearm correctly. Second thing is I don't point this gun at anything I don't intend to shoot. Meaning if I'm in a static range, I'm shooting at, within my lane, I'm here. My gun does not deviate to, someone else's lane. It does not deviate to my 90 degrees to my right or left. It stays right where I'm shooting. And that also goes in for if I'm going to draw a gun on a potential threat, right? I'm not going to point it in any direction besides that person that I intend to either neutralize or try to use to de-escalate the situation. And third thing is that my hand or my finger does not go on the trigger until I'm ready to shoot. Reason being, when your adrenaline's pumping, if you're shooting or you have to draw your weapon for a real life situation, if your finger's on that trigger and you have any sort of like flinching or anything, what could happen is when that flinch happens, you're going to squeeze that trigger. And if that round goes, you're responsible for whatever happens with that round. And you don't want to have a situation where you negligently fired because your finger's on that trigger you were anticipating and you shot before you wanted to. So keep your finger off the trigger until you are ready to engage. Whether it's your paper target, a potential threat, whatever the situation is, your finger stays off the trigger until you're going to shoot. Alright guys, so the 3 things I'm going to check for to make sure that my gun is cleared. So I'm going to check the barrel, the magazine well, and the bolt face. So the way that you do that when you have your gun is you see your barrel here. There's nothing there. I could tilt this up, see that my magazine well is empty, and then I check my bolt face. Right there. So all those things are cleared. Once I do that, I know my gun is cleared. I've kept it downrange, point oriented in the way I desired. I can slide my bolt forward and I'm good to go. I know my gun is cleared. All right, guys. So if I'm at a flat range, I'm shooting to my 12 o'clock is where my range is oriented, or my lane. So first thing I need to do to clear my gun is I need to drop the source of feed. Meaning I'm going to get rid of my magazine. So I'll push my magazine release, pull the magazine out. I'll put that to the side. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to slide the lock to, or the bolt, or the slide to the rear. The way that I do that, I'm not going to put my hand in front of the barrel because I haven't cleared the gun yet. So I'll grab the back of the slide, I'll pull it back, and I'll push up on this slide lock right here. And the way that I can do this while keeping my gun oriented in my lane is I tilt the gun down, I'm looking into my barrel, I don't see anything. I'm looking into my magazine well, where the magazine goes, I don't see anything, and then I have my bolt face. Once I've cleared those 3 things, I'm cleared. So I can send my bolt forward again, and now their gun is cleared. All right, guys, so let's talk about loading and unloading guns, okay? I don't know how often you guys shoot, if you go to outdoor ranges or whatnot. I know most indoor ranges will have some sort of barrier in between you and the lane next to you, but a lot of outdoor ranges that I've personally been to don't have that. And a big problem I have with outdoor ranges is not the range itself, it's the people that I have to stand next to while I shoot. And you have a lot of people that when they go to shoot and they're shooting at their target, they bring their gun in, the gun locks back, so they think that they're cleared, right? And so what they do, their gun's out, and when they bring it back in, they turn it this way. They have to look and drop the magazine. They'll put their magazine down, they'll put their gun down, pointed like this, and it's pointed right at either myself or someone else. And that's one, it's incredibly unsafe. 2, it's incredibly irresponsible because you're not treating the gun how it's supposed to be treated. You're not pointing it at something that you intend to shoot, so it shouldn't be pointed that way. Okay, so what I'm going to go over now is a way that you guys can load and unload your gun correctly while still keeping your gun oriented downrange the entire time. Okay, so when I do magazine changes, my gun, even though it's here, I turn it this way just so that I have more of an opening for where my magazine well is for my magazine to go into. But my gun is still oriented downrange the entire time. Okay, so coming from here, all I'm doing is turning it outward. I take my magazine, I keep my finger just as like a pointer or a guide, and I come right in, I hit the slide release down, and I just go right back into my action of how I want to shoot. Okay? Same thing when I go to shoot and my gun is empty. Okay, like we talked about how to clear it correctly. My gun, I don't need to turn it 9 degrees one way or the other. I keep it oriented downrange. I drop the magazine, and then I go into my fundamentals of clearing, which are I'm checking the chamber and the barrel, I'm checking the magazine well, I'm checking the bolt face, and now my gun is properly cleared. And until I do that, my gun stays oriented downrange. The only time that your gun really should deviate left or right is if it's going into a bag or your case or whatever you're doing to leave the range. Other than that, this gun, the barrel should be pointed downrange the entire time. All right, guys, so now we're going to go over the 6 points of contact that you're going to have when shooting a pistol. Okay, so first things first, I took the slide off just so that there's no sort of, where am I putting my gun? I know perception, and I don't want to give off the wrong idea. So I took the slide off just so that I can wave this freely, and just for instructional purposes. Okay, another thing you're going to need to know is your phalanges, which are these pads on your fingers here. You're going to need to know the proximal and the middle. Your distal here, but you don't need to know that for this right now. Just proximal and middle. So when I'm talking about your phalanges, proximal is that first one, middle is obviously the middle. Okay, so very first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna take your shooting hand. For me, it's my right hand. So my right hand, or my shooting hand, is gonna get on the gun, and I'm gonna get it as high into the gun grip that I can. Okay, so what that means is when my hand is here, my hand comes up into this dovetail here. Okay, when it comes up, I have it and it's seated high against the dovetail. The reason that you want to do that is that if you're shooting, if your hand is not as high up and then you have a gap, what's going to happen is when you go to shoot, that gun's going to lift and you're going to create a seesaw effect that you don't want. So when you bring your hand up on as high as you can on the gun, it's going to eliminate some of that recoil because it's going to go into the padding of your hand. Okay, so that's contact point number one. Your shooting hand goes as high as you can on the grip of the gun. All right. The second point, you're going to take your middle finger, which is going to sit on the grip down here, but your middle finger, the middle phalange, is going to be generally centered under the trigger guard. Okay, not in the trigger well, just in the trigger guard out here. Your middle phalange is going to sit on there. Okay, point number three, you're going to have your support hand, which for me is my left hand. My support hand, my proximal phalange, which is this pad right here, is going to go in front of and centered with that middle phalange from my middle finger. Okay, so what I mean by that is my hands are going to come together, and this finger is going to wrap around almost knuckle to knuckle, but my proximal phalange is going to sit on my middle phalange here. Okay, and that is going to be your third point of contact. Okay, so now that I have my 3 points of contact down, my fourth point of contact is my two hands are going to meet in the back. And what I mean by that is I'm going to sit here, my left hand and my support hand is going to take up as much of the rest of that grip as possible. Okay, so my two hands are meeting in the back of the pistol. All right, from there, your support thumb is going to go as close to this takedown lever, which is right here, either on it or right in front of it, but not high enough that it's going to interfere with the slide's movement and it's not going to nick your finger. So it's going to sit just right in this area. Okay, so that's where mine sits. And then your 6 point of contact, your thumb, you can either lay it on top of your thumb or thumb pad, or you can wrap it around, and then you would have your completed 6 points of contact. Okay? All right, guys, I know that was kind of a shorter video, but I really just wanted to go over gun safety with everyone. Like I said, that's something that I've been taught in the military, those 3 rules that we went over. It's stuff that's taught by professional shooters, by police academies, by any sort of shooting classes that you're going to go to. They're going to mention those 3 rules. It's something that is really important to follow, especially for new time shooters. If you're really new to this, you follow those 3 things. Like I said, it's really going to minimize the chances that you have a negligent discharge or any sort of safety incident that may occur. And then just those 6 points of contact, right? They don't have to be exact from the way that I said them. Those are just what I follow. But that should be your basis for, one, how the gun feels in your hands. If you can't get those 6 points of contact down correctly, it may be more something that the gun doesn't fit your hand. But it is something that you can work towards and have in your back pocket to think back to and identify with your grip. If you're shooting and it's not right, look at those 6 things that we mentioned. Do I have those 6 points of contact? And if I don't, that could be realistically why your shots aren't exactly where you want them to be. So just stuff to think about there. If you guys have any sorts of questions or anything you'd like us to go over more, please put in the comments and we'll get to you guys as soon as we can. Appreciate you guys. Have a great one.